Okay, we're going to run through how to measure up a wheel. We like to start with the tire size. So if you can see on this tire, it is a 20.5 65 by 10. Of course, that last number 10 always tells you your rim diameter. So the first thing we're going to ask you when you call in is your tire size. If you have that, it is very helpful. This wheel happens to be a 15-inch diameter, 10-inch wide, 8-hole pattern. So we're going to run through how you measure that. When you measure your diameter, you're actually measuring in here where the bead of the tire seats up. So if you can see that, it's hard to tell exactly what it is, but if you can imagine where that tire seats up on the inside of the rim, it's at 15 inches. The reason we like to go with the tire size is there are so many different tire options. There can be a 16, a 16.1, a 16.5. There's lots of variations of that rim diameter. So always check that tire size, and if you have a question, usually right in here on the inside bead of that wheel, it will tell you what that tire or what that wheel size is. So this one happens to be a 15-inch diameter. They usually put the diameter first, 8-inch wide, so 15 by 8. Of course, the width is a whole lot easier to measure, but where they measure the width is, again, inside to inside where the beads seat. You can see my tape here. That's measuring 8 inches inside to inside. So you almost have to have the tire off to get a good measurement. If you're measuring outside to outside, you'll typically get about an inch more, which this one's coming up close to 9. But again, inside to inside is what the wheel manufacturers go by when they give you that measurement. Next would be your bolt pattern. This one happens to be an 8-hole pattern. And of course, even numbered patterns are a lot easier to measure than an odd number, but an 8-hole we're going to start with here. The bolt circle is going to be center of bolt on the bottom to center of bolt on the top, which is hard, of course, to pick out the center, but if you pick out the top of the hole on the top to the top of the hole on the bottom, that's the same thing as center to center. This one's measuring 8 inches. We also would ask you to measure the pilot, which is the inside here where it slides over the hub. And this one, of course, center to center across the middle, measures 6 inches. We also probably would ask you to measure the bolt hole size. You can get different bolt hole sizes depending on the size of the bolt or the stud. It's better if you have a caliper to go ahead and measure with a caliper in there if you can, but usually with a tape you can also get it close enough. That one happens to come out at 0.67. So that probably takes a 5/8 stud. If you look close on this wheel, it happens to have a countersunk hole. Again, there are a lot of different countersinks, 90 degree, 60 degree, sometimes no countersink. Some of your bigger wheels might have what they call a bud countersink, ball seat, radius seat. That's a whole nother subject, I guess, but we will ask you that if you can tell us if that. Some will call it in the trailer world, they'll call it coined, but it's just got a taper to it for the nut to center up the wheel. And of course, typically the valve stem is to the outside. You can see the valve stem hole here. So when we get to talking about offset, typically we'll have the valve stem up or to the outside, and we like to, rather than pick out an offset, we like to go with a front side or a back side. It's just a whole lot easier to measure. So this one here, if you wanted to get a back side, you just stick your tape down through the pilot hole, and from the bottom of the center to the table will tell us the back side. You, of course, can do the same thing on the front. You might want to flip it over to get a true measurement on the front. Most of your wheels, when you look them up, they're going to tell you an offset off of the center line, but that is so hard to measure that it's a whole lot easier to do a front side or a back side. This one happens to be 1 1/8" positive offset, which means the wheel will set closer to the machine or to the implement. Positive meaning the back side is larger than the front side. So this one happens to have I believe a 5 5/8 back side and a roughly 3 1/8 front side. Again, when you do that, you're getting outside to outside measurements, so you're going to get more than 8 inches when you add them up, especially when you add the thickness of the center.
So we're going to go to questions or common questions. So the first one is going to be, how do you go and measure a 5-hole center, and what are the tricks to measuring the bolt circle on that?
Okay. Well, here's a 5-hole center, but 5-hole is quite difficult really with just a tape measure. And again, we're doing these with a tape measure. You can be a little bit off, but if you can get close here, we'll probably be able to tell you what it is. But on a 5-hole pattern, of course, you want to go from center of hole to center of hole directly across, but you of course don't have a hole that's across. So by rule, if you go from the center of hole number 1 to the outside of hole number 2, that'll give you a real close measurement to what that true circle is. So this one is measuring 5 1/2, which is exactly what this one is. It's a 5 on 5 1/2.